And we are back, and we are going to close out the year with 1983's classic Trading Places, rated R, with a runtime of 1 hour and 56 minutes. This comes to us from director John Landis, with screenwriting credits to Timothy Harris and Herschel Weingrod. This is currently streaming on AMC Plus and Paramount Plus, but also to buy rent on Prime Video. This stars Eddie Murphy as Billy Ray Valentine, who is a down-on-his-luck young man who's kind of the king of the con, and also Dan Ackroyd as Louis Winthorpe III, a straight-arrow commodities broker who works for the Dukes, played exquisitely by Ralph Bellamy and Don Ameche from countless movies and old Hollywood. So it was nice to see them actually in this, doing just reprehensible human beings. To round out the cast, you've got Denholm Elliott, who plays Coleman, the butler, and the always lovely Jamie Lee Curtis as Ophelia. We've seen this numerous times, and it still holds up.
Yeah.
It still holds up.
We grew up with this movie. Maybe one of the first
bawdy
comedies that we may have seen as
83
as youngsters. But yeah, it still holds up. It really does.
Do you think this movie could be made today?
Yeah, absolutely.
With the exception of the blackface, I guess.
Yeah, there's the one scene of blackface may be a bit too offensive for some people. Back then, we didn't really care as much. It wasn't done in a
derogatory.
I guess you would say it wasn't done in a derogatory way. It was just an oppression of a Jamaican guy. But yeah, I think this could be done. The basic message of the whole movie still sort of works. Nature versus nurture on the surface, but then you also have the whole thing of the poor versus the rich. It still applies today. It's still super relevant today.
Super relevant, and kind of interesting with certain news events lately of company CEOs. Being murdered on the street.
Yeah, it's definitely not a fun comedy going on in today's reality, but the class war has always been, I guess, part of our society.
But I think it's also relevant because I feel like people, not to go off on a tangent, but people feel like the divide between the haves and the have-nots is becoming greater and greater. The middle class feels like it's
since this movie came out, especially. When did this movie come out?
83.
Came out in 83.
Yeah, we're already feeling this in 83. Right.
That's when things started really changing.
Definitely under Reagan.
When the divide between the middle class and the wealthy, the ultra wealthy,
became even grander.
Just began to explode.
Right.
Like back then, if you looked at the curve between poor to rich, it just was sort of like a slope going up. And now if you look at it, it's basically like a slope going up, and the slope where it starts is much lower than where it used to be. Mm-hmm. And where it ends, it's basically just a rocket ship going up to the sky. Yeah. It's crazy how the wealth divide has really changed in 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nuts.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, this film would probably be easily made today. I mean, if anything, it may be more violent.
We recently saw Home Alone, which was the latter part of it is just complete slapstick. I wonder if they could do something like that, where it's just ultra violent comedy, right? But
I don't know. I mean, we are in such a strange time, especially right now.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, because I think at this particular point in time, with the whole stuff with the United Healthcare assassin and that, there's some walking on eggshells happening.
For sure.
There is far more sympathy for the murderer than I ever imagined there would be for a murderer.
Yeah, I agree.
It's shocking the amount of not just sympathy, but rooting for
and just holding him up as a hero of sorts.
For some, it's become that. And like I said, this has been this divide has increased for the past 40 years. At some point, something like this was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I feel like companies are trying to get ahead of it by scrubbing CEO pictures from websites.
they're
and
in
stuff
defense
like that.
mode right now.
For sure.
They're
For sure.
basically trying to protect themselves because, for all we know, this guy is just like the tip of the spear.
Iceberg. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there could be more plots out there. Who knows?
Either more plots or just people who, like I said, are now inspired because if you look online, like I said, it is disturbing the amount of people who
are high-fiving this guy. Yeah.
High-fiving, championing,
murder,
drawing pictures, writing cartoons,
yeah.
all of this.
Yeah.
And then every once in, usually in the replies, a couple of replies down, you'll find somebody who's like, oh, but murder's terrible. And yes, murder
way down the line.
Yeah, murder's, and like I'm like, yeah, usually that's like the first comment, and like people are replying after that. But now it's sort of like, yay, you know, fuck that CEO.
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, it's crazy now. It is absolutely crazy, and it's sort of, you don't want to. Obviously, nobody wants to victim blame.
Right.
You know, victim blaming is a crime in itself for many, but a lot of those people who would once have been saying, oh, well, that's victim blaming, are on the side of
the shooter.
Yeah. It's strange. And it's not like a left or right thing either. People on the left, people on the right, it's like, yeah, he did kill him, but
it's okay.
It's I don't feel bad.
Right. I
don't feel bad.
And it's weird because this is a guy, a human being with children.
Yeah. But then it's just like, oh, but I don't know if any of this is true. Like he wrote off, he signed off, or he created plans to deny people coverage. It's crazy, and
again, he's not like the richest man on the planet.
No.
And yet
he's part of that machine
right.
that has profited for the last 40 years
off of pain and suffering,
and it's sort of like.
And death, because a lot of people have had family members die because of
and that's why there is this like complete lack of sympathy that you would normally find. And of course people will say, yes, this is wrong.
Yeah.
But the amount of people that are not going along with it, that definitely would have said something if it was like any other situation.
Right.
Like if this was even if it was like a politician. Mm-hmm. If it was a politician that was attacked like this, most of the things would be, this is terrible. This is not how we do things in this country.
Oh, of course.
Absolutely not.
Right.
But
there would actually be legislation to protect those people. Whereas if it's anybody else, it's thoughts and prayers, right?
Yeah. And now it's sort of like, we don't find any sympathy for this man. Many of us think that he played the game, and now he
effed around. He found out. Yeah. Well, it's funny, kind of to bring it all back together.
Somehow we're in this deep, serious subject. We're talking about trading places.
Well, I mean, it's funny because when you start the film, Louis and Billy Ray and the Dukes are in a certain situation, but by the time the movie ends, it's completely different. And it's interesting because you don't feel bad when the Dukes get theirs. You don't.
Well, they're
fuck those guys.
Yeah, they're shown as being completely reprehensible people, but this is still a comedy. The Dukes get the justice that they deserve.
Yes.
They're basically, as Billy Ray says, the worst thing you could do to a rich guy is make him poor.
Right.
And that's what happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, wasn't there I don't know what other film, but there was like a little cut aside to just two homeless dudes, and it was the Dukes.
Yes.
I forgot what film that was.
I forgot. Yes. No, you're right.
It was sort of like a little joke.
Right. Was it another Landis movie where they appear as like homeless guys?
I don't know. I don't remember. It was just sort of like a little cutaway with a couple of cameos.
Recently. Yeah. But here, so Louis is, I guess their head trader.
He's like their golden boy.
Yeah, and he makes the money. And Randall, played by Ralph Bellamy, he's the one that decides. Well, for some reason, he's very much into, I guess, reading about science.
Yeah.
So he decides he's going to conduct his own scientific experiment here, and he wants to see how.
He's like an armchair anthropologist.
Yes. So Randolph wants to see how, if the tables are turned, people would react. So they willy-nilly pick Louis, who's been a good soldier to them, and Billy Ray, who they've met just now through circumstance.
Yeah.
And they decide they're going to flip the script and take everything away from Louis and give everything to Billy Ray just to see how.
Well, the bet is what is more influential on a human being? Is it the upbringing? Is it the environment? Or is it genetics? Randolph is in the camp of it is the environment, that you could take anybody, and if you put them in good enough circumstances, they will flourish. Whereas Mortimer believes it's genetics, and that Billy Ray would be incapable of achieving the heights that Winthorpe achieved just because he's a black man.
Yeah. And he doesn't use the word black.
No.
Oh, yikes. That guy was unapologetically racist.
No. Yeah. And he believes that it's genetics. He's like, oh, well, of course he can't do it. He's who he is. So, and the thing that's funny is just that they're completely heartless about it, because
oh my God, yeah,
you'd figure they would have some kind of emotional attachment to Winthorpe, because not only
marry one of their nieces.
Exactly. Not only is he making them money because he is so insightful and figuring out whether pork bellies will rise or fall, but he's also marrying one of their grandnieces, and but none of that matters.
No.
It's just sort of like, okay, and we're going to pick that guy, the Billy Ray, who just bumped into Winthorpe by accident, and there was like some altercation, and there was like a big scene at the club. So, and
also making it even more callous to destroy both of their lives, because eventually they were going to Billy Ray
after the new year, despite the fact that Billy was doing such a phenomenal job for them.
Also doing a great job
William,
for them.
as they called him.
William, right. They wouldn't call him Billy Ray.
Yeah. Despite the fact that he did a great job and he was flourishing and just really fitting in perfectly, they were like, what, you mean we'll keep William? And the other guy was, oh, absolutely not. No.
Oh. Don't repeat it.
One of those people will never be in charge of our father's company.
Yes, please don't repeat the word. It's funny because, well, it's not funny, but it's like I listen to it and I'm like cringing because it's like we don't say those words.
Well, people that old back then, yeah. Well, even now, let's be real. There's, there's still plenty of racism going around.
Oh, for
plenty
sure.
of prejudice.
Yeah, for sure.
Plenty of slurs. Although I gotta be honest, I feel like the slurs are losing their power when you see kids of every single nationality just busting out the N-word.
I know.
It doesn't even matter anymore. It just rolls off people's backs. Like, I'm like, you see like a crowd of Muslim kids just, hey.
Yeah. Well, here too, like,
what up, N-word?
Yeah. Here too, the kids at the high school. I'm just like, oh
yeah, that's
goodness.
what I mean. These kids at the high school, kids on the train, and I'm just like, those kids ain't black.
Yeah, you don't get to use that word. I'm glad that my kids are terrified of that word or having any association with that word.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think when that generation's in charge, I'm wondering if it'll even be that big a deal.
Who knows? Who knows if we'll even survive that long? With the way the world is
we'll
going.
be the crusty old people. If we're even still alive.
Yeah. You've seen this obviously before and have seen it. I feel like we've seen it recently within like the last year. I thought we sat down and watched this film, and just seeing it again today. I mean, what are your impressions of the film?
I mean, it's a solid movie. It's a good film, and it still makes me laugh. Yeah. Dan Ackroyd is a great comedic actor. I mean, Eddie Murphy, come on.
It's brilliant, yeah.
Absolutely great comedic actor.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis is amazing in it.
Don Ameche and Ralph Bellamy.
Don Ameche, Ralph Bellamy, Denholm, all the main actors.
Gleason, character actor, Mr. Beeks.
Yeah. Everybody plays their part really well.
Yeah.
Former Senator Al Franken.
Former Senator Al Franken, yes. Jim Belushi.
Jim Belushi with a small cameo as just the party gorilla.
Yeah. Frank Oz.
Oh, Frank Oz in a blink and you'll miss it moment. I mean, most people don't even know what Frank Oz looks like.
That's true.
But
the
yeah,
voice is there.
he's there. But everybody does a great job. The script is sharp. The situation is, it's a bit ridiculous that everybody would go along with this plan. But, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
It's amazing how obedient people are to wealth.
Yeah.
And the people who control it, it's not only people who they want that money, they want to be part of that to get money for themselves, but some people are just terrified of that money. And you could, even today, you could sort of see that now, especially with this last election cycle. Look at big businesses and how they're sort of like shifting and kowtowing, and it's sort of like, where's the big talk? Where's all the, we're standing up for this and that, and now suddenly it's just like,
not at all.
Which ass cheek would you like me to work on next? The other one looks a bit less shiny. I should apply more lip service to that one.
And also just
please don't kill me.
And also just the meanness, right? The meanness of just the act of ruining these people's lives, right?
Well,
over something as silly as $1.
Yeah, all the bets are $1. But the thing that it's another reason why this is good is because the way they directed everybody, it's telling. Because in the beginning, when they're introducing the wealthy characters, they never look. There's no eye contact made between them and any of the people that serve them.
Yeah.
Dan Ackroyd never looks at Denholm Elliott.
At Coleman, no.
He never looks at Coleman. The Dukes are even worse because they have so many people, and they never once look at them. They don't even say hello to any of them. Any of those they say, "Oh, hello, Mr. Duke."
And the Dukes
barely say I think Dan Aykroyd mentions one person's name, the guy who took his jacket, but he never looks him in the eye.
No,
never. And that's just how it is. It's sort of like I have reached a status where these things around me, that's what they are. They are things. They are not people. They are not humans with lives. They are just there to serve.
Right.
And greet me and treat me with the respect that I have earned.
Right.
Because my wallet is extremely fat.
Yeah. That scene where he's in the taxi with Jamie Lee Curtis where he says, do you think they just give these to anybody? And he pulls out his wallet and he's got like 50
He's got a wall of credit cards. Yeah.
And it didn't even mean anything because when he went to the bank to try to get money, he couldn't do anything because
they took them all away.
Because he was a drug dealer.
Yeah.
The IRS confiscated his money.
And he always felt the need to correct them. It wasn't heroin. It was PCP.
Don't get it twisted. I guess we could say, obviously this is a comedy, but could we also categorize this as satire?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a satire of the class war between the rich and the poor.
Yeah. And even in the beginning credits, there's scenes, because this takes place in the great state of Pennsylvania, of just like different people, right?
Business people going to work, people working in a fish market, people who have nothing, just lying on the ground covered in newspaper.
Yeah. Remember newspapers?
Yeah.
Do they still make those?
I still see those little boxes filled with those Spanish newspapers. There's usually some woman with huge boobs on the thing. Some telenovela actress or other girl.
Sure. And then so the beginning is kind of interesting because you have those sequences interwoven, and then you get into the story where, like you said, it's about the haves and the have-nots, and then how the have-nots decide to punish the haves. And the way that they do it is just masterful.
Yeah, they make them have-nots. Yeah.
And to your point, the moral of the story is to hurt rich people, you got to get them where it hurts, and it hurts them most in the wallet.
Yeah.
Make them poor.
Well, that was the idea back in the 80s.
Well, I think that would still hold true now.
It would still hold true now, but you're dealing with a lot of, in this story at least, a lot of serendipity and insider information.
Sure.
Nowadays, people don't really have that, but they do have information. And
I wonder if they don't have insider information. I feel like that's a thing that's always been
if somebody has insider information, they're not trying to make somebody else poor. They're trying to make themselves rich.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, like back to our original turn to the serious side of the world, it's sort of like if this is a case of, like I said, tip of the spear, we're reaching a point in our history where maybe they've gone too far, and people are just
I've had enough.
People are going to start saying, "Oh, I've had enough," and you already have people saying, "Oh, well, politicians don't do it. It doesn't matter who you vote for.
Right.
They're not going to do anything."
Which isn't wrong, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, all evidence would seem to point, it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah. Government is no longer for people.
Because, the belief, I believe, or the realization is coming that these guys, the reason why nothing really ever gets done is because
they're beholden to the business.
They're not really in charge. So we have to, it's our Second Amendment right to raise arms against tyranny, but the government isn't really the tyranny here. It's the
big businesses.
It's the people who have the real money, which basically is,
and the people that have the money.
Money is just power coupons. It's basically, hey, here's 500 power coupons.
Yes.
My spaceships are the one you're going to be using to send stuff to Mars or whatever.
Right. Or the fact that, I'm contributing to your campaign so that eventually you'll let me. Yeah, you'll
be nice to me when
and you won't charge me taxes for the next 20 years.
So that's a big part of it. You'll make it easier for me.
Right.
It's really gotten kind of, I mean, in the beginning, back when this film was made, like I said, that was the sort of the genesis of it.
Right.
And this stuff was just starting to happen. So it was like, oh, okay, you get a little break. You get a little break. But now it's been 40 years of little breaks.
Right. And wealth, like you mentioned before, the wealth divide is just astronomical.
It's berserk now to the point where most of the people that were middle class back then would be poor.
Right.
And the people that were poor, they don't even register on the bar anymore. No. They're so below the poverty line.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think as much as we laugh about this, it's definitely food for thought too, because and I wonder if that was sort of some of the intention while making this film, because many things are said in jest, right? Many truths are said in jest.
I don't think anybody back then imagined it would get to this level of craziness.
I agree with you 100%.
Because it is really...
It's out of control.
It's really like lopsided how things have become.
Yeah, absolutely.
That less than 1% of people can control 70% of the wealth.
Yeah.
And it really shouldn't be like that.
No.
It really shouldn't be like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
enough
wild.
Financial preaching. Power to the people!
So getting back to Trading Places, what did you think of the Ophelia character played by the lovely Jamie Lee Curtis?
Oh, Ophelia, she's a lovely character. It's
the hooker with a heart.
The hooker with the heart of gold.
Yes.
There you go. Absolute trope there.
And also boobage. I mean, her scene, but there was that scene where Billy Ray has everyone over at the house, and those two women just get topless for I don't know what reason. Why are
they were in like the main room with everybody.
Yes,
like there was the one upstairs who was just in his bed who just
him.
Her boobs are just flopping out.
Yeah.
But that was, at least she was alone.
Right.
There's a bit of implied modesty there. The other two were just like, hey. I got to be honest, I've been to a bunch of parties.
And they didn't escalate that quickly.
I mean, I've never seen a party where people were just dancing around and suddenly tits were just flopping everywhere. Those are the wrong kind of parties, I guess.
I guess. It's kind of funny because, again, 83, I think women are definitely objectified.
Yeah.
And I think that this is just par for the course. I think if somebody was making this now, it would be probably a little bit different. However, in this particular time and place, this was just par for the course. I mean, I think that it's a little bawdy, but it's not. I feel like there were even more risque movies in the 80s than this. So.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, God, yeah.
Like
the
Porky's
80s. Get the hell out of here. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was mild as far as sexuality or sexualizing women went. Ophelia and Louis, they, as far as I could tell, they never even really had sex in the movie. It was just, there was like that scene where he was sick and she just sort of held him. Yeah, her boobs were out.
Isn't that how you hold? Isn't that how you spoon people? You just get naked except for your underpants.
Well, he was he was fully dressed in
Yes.
bed.
Yes.
But
well, nobody wants to see Dan Aykroyd without clothes, but Jamie Lee, I
true.
can see.
Yeah.
She
well, I mean, yeah, you gotta sell those tickets.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. I mean, top to bottom. I mean, you have like a powerhouse cast. I mean, this is Eddie Murphy in the height of his dominion as just a comedy star.
Well, this was one of the first things that
this
he did,
was one
right?
of the first things. Then he was already on.
Then after this, it was like Beverly Hills Cop and 48 Hours.
And, all those things. But I mean, he's already SNL.
He's out of SNL and his trajectory is skyrocketing.
Just going up, right? So I think so. You have somebody like him. You have somebody like Dan Aykroyd, who is like a seasoned comedic actor, also writer, and you have Ralph Bellamy and Don Ameche, who've had this long, industrious Hollywood career. I mean, they've been working since like the 30s, I believe, maybe even earlier. So they have pedigree. And then you have Jamie Lee, who's the daughter of Tony Curtis, and Janet Leigh, also pedigree there, but also in her own right.
Yeah, I mean, she was in
doing things.
This is after like Halloween and Prom
and the Fog
Night.
And Prom Night and all those other. Yeah, I think she was transitioning.
So she already had a bit of a name for herself there. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think strong cast, excellent script, an excellent script. I mean, again.
It's still funny. I mean,
just,
and
so sharp.
even when
I mean, we watched it.
We watched it. Yeah, Olive came in and out, but she was
She stayed for most of it.
She stayed through most of it. Yeah,
she came for like the last third of it.
Yeah, but she was still laughing. She was like, "Oh, is this the one where?"
Yeah.
And and she stuck around.
She loves that hiding the salmon in the dirty
God.
beard.
Oh God, that. That whole sequence
is great. Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd drunk and dressed as Santa, just roaring. I love that. And for some reason, not only he's dressed as Santa, he's like got like these pimp shoes on. These like white pimp shoes with like 2-inch black soles.
Yes. Just there's nothing to critique here. I mean, again, blackface, but.
Yeah, but the film is so good you can just you can sort of glance over it, and it's in service to the story. So you kind of you could easily look over that.
Obviously,
plus,
if this was being made now, you wouldn't do that, obviously, but
yeah, it's just such a strong movie, and it still is. It really hasn't gotten dated
and the concepts, the ideas are still, like you said, relevant to today.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could totally make this film today and change very little about it.
Yeah.
And it would work.
All right. Scale of 1 to 10. What would you say?
Maybe like 8.5.
8.5? I was going to give it a 9.5.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I'll give it a 9. I'll give it a 9.
It's super strong. I mean, is it perfect? No, but it's damn close to it. And I think that for a movie that is 40 plus years old at this point, you got to give this movie its credit. I mean, it is still funny. And
the fact that it's got this kind of longevity and it's still funny today for a film that was made in the 80s.
Yeah. 4 decades ago.
4 decades ago. It's still funny.
Things have changed. However, certain things are still always going to be funny. And this comes out gangbusters. Super strong script, well cast actors in those roles. I mean, top to bottom, just really, really sharp. Moves well. Sometimes you see stuff from previous decades and it just doesn't translate, which is always disappointing, especially when you have it in your nostalgia box in the brain. But this is still just firing on all cylinders. And it's also, I also want to say how, like, I love seeing neighborhoods in that time frame. And I think I turned to you when the towers show up, when the World Trade Center shows up, and I was like, it's so surreal to see them.
Yeah.
Because we know that they don't exist anymore. But to see the world in which they did exist it's history, right?
Yeah, because that world's not around anymore.
No. Yeah, definitely food for thought. And it's kind of interesting as we wrap up the year. This is a story that starts around Christmas, ends in New Year's, and people make their bank. I think if we learned anything from this film, it's to do what the rich do and make your money. Make your money, because money definitely can't do stuff without it, right?
Yeah.
You could say it's an evil, sure, but guess what? You need to pay the rent, you need money. You got to pay that mortgage, you need money. You want to send your kids to college, you need money. You need any kind of medical whatever, you need money. Money is important. Don't get it twisted. It's not everything, but it certainly helps.
It's not everything, but it makes everything easier.
For sure. So I think the big takeaway is get your financial literacy on, folks.
Yes.
Yeah. And with that, as we wrap up the year, I want to wish you and yours all the best in the holiday season and in the coming new year. And may blessings be in abundance in your home. And may you have peace and prosperity, longevity, health, wealth, long life, and so much love. And with that, we're going to wrap it up and say
Good night.
good night. See you in 2025.